Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to this afternoon's webinar, Get Your Payroll Done for Sage 50 Payroll. In this session, we'll be focusing on processing your payroll. My name's Alice, and I'm going to be your host and presenter for the session, which I am expecting to last around 45 minutes today. And I'm also joined by my colleague Duncan, who's going to be answering your questions throughout the session as well on the Q&A. And let's also take a look at what we'll be covering today. So this webinar is kind of broken down into two main sections. First one is just a short one, but just about preparing to process. So these are some tasks that we recommend that you do and check before you actually process your payroll. And then main section of the webinar, of course, is processing payroll. So we're going to go through a pay run focusing on 5 key tasks. We'll always finish with some further support as well, so I will be kind of just making you aware of some available resources, including extra webinars which are coming up. But let's go ahead and get started with that first section on preparing to process. So this webinar is going to be great for people newer to payroll. We will be kind of breaking down the main steps of a pay run in a bit more detail, and also giving you some kind of top tips along the way as well. But this first part is basically 4 steps to check in order to make sure that you've prepared to process your payroll. So you would need to do these before you actually process the payments and things for your employees. So step number 1 is to add any new starters that you've had join your company since the last time you did payroll. They'll hopefully have a P45 or a starter checklist that was previously called a P46. And you can use the information on these forms to enter them as a new starter on payroll. Now, there are a few ways that you can add new starters. Generally, it would be via the Quick Employee option or the Employee Wizard option. So a couple of different ways that you can add them. If you're curious about how to do this and you're wanting a bit more detail about this process, we have actually fairly recently ran a new starters webinar where we demonstrated this process from start to finish. So I would recommend having a look at that if you are unsure. Step number 2 is to enter any absences this pay period that would qualify for a statutory payment. So this would be things like sick pay, maternity or paternity pay, etc. And this is to make sure that the payments, if there are any, are included and calculated appropriately in the enter payments step. And again, loads of webinars covering these topics for you. Step 3 is to put any employees who are not being unpaid on hold to exclude them from the pay run. And this is a little drop down in the employment tab of the employee record, which you can just see on that screenshot there. So an employee whose status is marked as on hold, these are employees who do still work for you. They're still employed, but maybe they're a casual worker or they don't work consistently. So there might be payment periods where they're actually not receiving any payments. If that's the case, HMRC do need to be informed of this. Otherwise, they'll be wondering, why they're missing periods for the employees and no payments for certain times. And then at step 4, this is for those of you who receive electronic notifications from HMRC, but this is to check the IR Secure mailbox or your HMRC mailbox for any tax code or student loan notices that might need to be applied. If you don't receive electronic notifications, I would still advise just to check your government gateway portal or wherever you would normally check for these notices, just to make sure that you've got any changes applied and you're ready to go with processing your payroll. Now, I've already checked this list for today's webinar just to save a little bit of time. I've actually entered maternity pay for one of my employees, which I'll show you shortly, and I've also added a new starter. And I also have somebody on hold, so I've kind of tried to cover all bases there. But yeah, as I say, if you do want more information on any of those steps, I've linked more information on the handout, and we do have webinar recordings of them. So once you've checked this list and you've done those tasks, you'll be ready to go ahead and process your payroll. So I am going to demonstrate a pay run from start to finish, focusing on 5 key tasks. First one is going to be setting your process date. So this will determine the tax period that you're going to process for and the pay date, which is reported to HMRC in your submissions like the FPS. We'll then look at entering the payments. So this is where you'll make sure that the employees are getting paid the right amount, including any deductions or company loans or attachments of earnings and things like that. Step 3 will be to produce the payslips for your employees, but also any pre-update reports that you might need to kind of help you check any values and make sure everything is correct before you go ahead and update the records, which is step 4. So updating the records, that's kind of confirming those pay values in payroll. And then the last step that we're going to cover is submitting the HMRC. So this is your full payment submission, often abbreviated to FPS. So that is how we'll refer to it today. So as you'll see, there are more steps in between these that you can do, depending on how you process payroll. I will touch on a few of these throughout the session as well. And as I say, some top tips from us too, but these are the kind of basic steps of processing payroll. So let's start at the beginning. Good place to start with setting the process date. Now this can be set in a few different ways, which I'll show you in just a moment. But HMRC guidance is that this date must be the date that the employees receive their pay, unless that falls on a non-banking day. If that's the case, you might be paying them a bit earlier or later than normal. And that's probably going to happen more often over things like bank holidays or Christmas, for example. But it is important to still make sure that the process date is the date that they're receiving the pay. And this is just to make sure that you're reporting everything correctly to HMRC. It's also in case any of your employees are receiving something like universal credit, as a different pay date could affect that for the employees. But let's go ahead and go to a first demonstration of the webinar. And I'm going to begin by setting my process date. So as you can see, I'm logged into Payroll here. And today I'm actually going to work through my pay run using the payroll tasks, which are found in the payroll section and then just in the top left here. So that's where I'll be working from today. If you do prefer a more visual way of working, or you're new to payroll, you might actually prefer the process map. So you can turn this on by going to View, Change View, and Process Map. So we have the process map here, it's got the same steps. You do have a few bonus ones in here, like the HMRC mailbox. But yeah, it's the same steps, just in a kind of flowchart format instead. So whichever you would prefer. But both of these ways, whether it's by the tasks or the process map, have the steps in the same order, and that's the order to complete the tasks in. But as I mentioned, I'll be showing you the 5 main payroll tasks, although there are more that you could incorporate in your pay run. First little tip, just a quick way to turn off the process map. Just quickly click the employee section and then back to payroll, and that's gone. But yeah, let's go ahead and change that process date. So we'll click on this. You do have a little calendar to choose from. So I'm just going to select 28th of Feb, that is my next pay date. I do run a monthly payroll, and I always process on the last day of the month. So this is going to determine that tax period. We can see the tax week, month, and of course tax year as well. So I'll click OK. So if you're wondering what your process date is set to, you can double check there. You also have it in the bottom right corner here too, so just at a glance you can check what your process date is set to. Another place you can set your process date, you might have noticed when you log into the program and when you put in your username and password, you do have the option of checking your process date at that point too, just to make sure it's set correctly for when you're opening the program. But that's the first step done. My process date is changed. So next step was entering the payments. Something to point out here as well, before you go and enter those payments, if you use Sage HR, you could actually use this import employee data option. And this is going to be great to kind of see if there are any, any new information or any updates for your employees, any new starters maybe, or any absence notifications that you need to action. And this is just a good kind of preparation step ahead of entering the payments. So this would go through, we can see it's all up to date there. But if there were updates to kind of import, you would have them in here. That's just another option for you. But now I would move on to selecting which employees I'd like to pay. If you've got multiple payment frequencies or you've got employee groups set up, you can actually go to the outline just here. And we can see we've got different payment frequencies here. If you have set up any employee groups, they will be there too. Now, I only have monthly employees, but if I had different payment frequencies, they would show as I kind of clicked in each of these. So I'm just going to click monthly, clear and swap to highlight everyone in that group. I could also, in my case, just click on all employees since they're all monthly. And that is highlighted everyone. Don't worry as well if this selection does include leavers or anyone who's on hold. They will be deselected as you go into the Enter Payments screen, just to make sure that you don't accidentally put through any payments for them. So as you can see, I do have an employee on hold. You might as well. I just want to show you what window will come up if you do. Another thing to mention, if you do have a lot of changes from one period to the next in terms of like payment values or hours, you might want to use this option called Reset Payments. And this is a really great way of resetting some values before you enter this period's payments. So let me just quickly show you what this looks like. So I'm just going to click Next. I would always advise to selectively reset, just so you don't accidentally clear all of the values. You can also choose which employees are included in the process. So maybe you didn't want a few people there, you could just deselect them. But this is basically going to be a case of kind of deciding, which pay elements you want to retain, which you want to clear, or if you've got like a default value for them, if you just want to set it back to that. So really handy option. If you've got a lot of changes from one period to the next, you'd be able to work through this and then of course click Next and then Finish and just kind of help to stop any confusion really with any existing values against the payments. Another option to enter the hours is timesheet entry. So I don't have time to go through this option today, but this is just a different way of entering them really. So you'd enter the hours worked next to the employees in a kind of grid format. And I have linked more information for that option on the handout. But today we are focusing on enter payments. So I'll go ahead and click that. Now, because we've got somebody highlighted who's on hold, we will see this message. So this message will only come up if one of these options apply. So for things like leavers or people who were already updated for the period, or of course people on hold, or who've had a change in payment frequency. It's basically just to deselect anyone who doesn't need any payments putting through for them, just to avoid any problems there. So I'm going to click yes. I'm going to deselect that employee on hold, so we can see it's done that for me. And then the Enter Payment screen comes up, starting with the first employee highlighted in my list. So the Enter Payments screen, it's set up with different tabs along the top. We've got payments, deductions, attachments and company loans. We've also got an SSP, so statutory sick pay or parental leave pay tab. So if you do need to check anything in here, you absolutely can, or if you need to extend any absence such as sickness. We've also got a summary tab. So this has a payment side and a deduction side. Really great way of just kind of comparing totals and checking any values against the employee. An information tab as well. So this has sections on figures if you want a bit more detail on anything. And then a notes tab too. So if there is anything that you need to make a note on for this employee's pay this period, for example, you absolutely can. And notice as well at the bottom of most of the tabs in here, we do have a kind of gross to net summary. So this will show the gross pay, of course, to the net pay, including any tax and national insurance. So at a glance, you can see those values for the employee. But let's go ahead and enter these payments. So this employee has their salary in here. We can see we've got the salary pay element with the hours or number value and the rate against that too. We do also have overtime and bonus assigned to them as pay elements. Now there is nothing against these, so there is no amounts for them. It's just going to be the salary that will be getting paid to this employee. So I would double check this, of course add anything that I need to, check this summary at the bottom, and then once I'm happy, what I can do is click Save Next, and that's going to move me to the next employee in my selection. And you can confirm this just with the name there at the top. So employee number 2, there's actually no changes for them, so I'm just going to click Save Next. And same with employee number 3, so Save Next again. Now employee number 4, this is the employee who's starting their maternity pay this month. I've already entered these dates as the kind of preparation before I went ahead and processed payroll. And if I go ahead to the summary tab, I can see it's already calculating the amount of statutory maternity pay for them. Now it does depend on your company policies and things like that, but this employee could just be getting this maternity pay, or what you might do is top up their SMP with salary. So I know my company, for example, we like to pay the employees their full wage as normal for a couple of months or whatever. So I do want them to receive the normal gross pay, which is a gross pay of £2,047.50. Now at the moment, they're actually getting too much if we check this gross pay here, and that's because it's adding the maternity pay on top of their normal salary. So in this case, what I'd like to do is use this Make Up Basic option, and that's going to work out how much salary the employee needs on top of that SMP to get it to their kind of normal basic pay. So I'll show you how this works. First step, in the Payments tab, I'm just going to make sure that I've got the normal kind of salary in here. So I've specified the amount that I want to pay them, which is £2,047.50. We've just got the hours or number set to 1 there, since it's like a salary. Then I'm going to go ahead and click that Make Up Basic option. You do get a warning that you want to continue. It's going to reduce the hours and number value of the pay element to kind of accommodate for that statutory payment. So I'll click Yes. And straight away, I can see that total gross pay has reduced to the amount that I'd specified. So they're now getting their full wage as normal, and it's made up of statutory maternity pay and then topped up with the correct amount of salary. So it just helps to make sure you're not overpaying your employees. So I'm happy with that adjustment now for this employee. You can see it's reduced that hours or number value there. So moving on to my next employees, this actually would normally be the employee who's on hold. So it's obviously skipped out employee number 5 and gone straight to 6. No more changes for them. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip to my last employee. So this is actually my new employee. They started working with us on the 10th of February. Now this month, because they did start on the 10th, that means they're not working the full month, but they do actually have a full month's salary in here. So when I added them as a new starter, I specified their gross salary per year, I specified the payroll that they're monthly paid, and then what payroll's done is converted that into a monthly salary. But since they're not working the full month, what I'm going to do is use a manual adjustment just to work out how much salary they're going to be getting for the days that they've worked. So to do this, first of all, I just need to work out the actual days that they've worked this pay period, and then divide that by the total working days for the employee this period. So just as an example, so this employee is monthly, they work Monday to Friday, so that means there are 20 working days in February for them. Since they started on the 10th, that means they're going to be working 15 days out of those 20. Now do remember the days worked and total working days could be different for your employees. It just depends on their working days and working patterns, etc. But once you have figured out those values, you can do that manual adjustment to adjust their pay accordingly. So again, make sure they've got their full salary for the month or for the week in here. And I'm going to use this calculator icon here. And I'm going to say I want to divide the days worked, so they've worked 15, divided by the total working days in the period, which is 20 for this employee. I'll click equals and then tab on my keyboard. And what that's done is kind of adjusted and reduced that salary accordingly. So out of this full month's wage of £2,047.50, this is how much they'll be getting for 15 days worth. And we can see that gross to net kind of summary is adjusted accordingly as well. Of course, the tax and national insurance has changed for them. So that is actually all of my adjustments done for end payments. So everyone's payments are entered for my February pay run. Just wanted to mention before we kind of finish this section of a little top tip. So if you are kind of in the middle of entering the payments and you need to go to the employee's record to check for something, just to save you from closing down enter payments and losing where you are, you can actually just go ahead and click this employee symbol in the left. And this is going to be like a little shortcut to the record. So if you do need to come in and like check anything pension-wise or check any employee details and things like that, you absolutely can. And then you would just close that down and you'd be right back in enter payments exactly where you were. So you're not going to lose your place. This is going to be a really great option if you've got a lot of employees to work through. But yeah, that was a bit more on entering payments. Just want to go back to the slides now and have a little bit of a recap. So entering payments, remember you do have that reset payments wizard. So if you've got a lot of changes from one period to the next, that is a good option. Also, if you've got a lot of employees and you want a bit of a quicker way of entering the payments, we do have different options like timesheet entry or importing the payment information straight into enter payments as well for the employees. For anyone who uses the pensions module, you would run the pension assessment after you've entered the payments. And what that would do is assess your employees' age and wage and determine whether they're eligible to be enrolled in your pension scheme. Now, while I'm not able to go through these options today, please know we do have, more information on them. Know that the options are there. And we have actually run webinars on most of these topics too, so we do have recordings available to watch and find out a bit more detail on them. As for the enter payment screen itself, so top left, that is the little top tip I mentioned, so you do have a shortcut to the record there. Then just below that, you've got the different tabs of enter payments, like the payments, deductions, loans, etc. As well as being able to view the summary of the employee's payments and deductions this period. And a little tip, if you do have an employee whose pay isn't quite looking as expected, I would advise just checking through these tabs and enter payments. There might be something there that's been added by mistake or something, with the wrong amount in. So it's a good idea just to double check in case there's anything out of the blue. Don't forget as well, you do have that make up basic option in the summary tab if you're needing to work out how much salary you need to top up statutory payments by. Really great option. And then you've got the main part of the screen. So this is where you would enter the hours and the rates against the pay elements. Also where you would do a manual adjustment if needed, just using that calculator icon. And then at the bottom, you've got that gross to net breakdown, that little summary there. So at a glance, you can check those values, including the tax and national insurance too. But after you've entered these payments, next step is going to be to produce the payslips and the pre-update reports. That is step 3 on our pay run. In Sage 50 Payroll, there are 3 different ways that you can produce the payslips. Online payslips is definitely our recommended way. So this is where you would upload the payslips to Sage HR, and the employees would be able to log into their online portal to view those payslips at any time. So this is really convenient for them and quick for you to do as well. A lot of you likely already use this feature, but if you've got no idea what I'm talking about, again, we do have a recording where Duncan actually goes through that in great detail, just how to set it up, how to use it, and of course demonstrating all of that too. We also have emailing payslips as an option. So this is where you can email them to your employees, and this could be through something like Outlook or Gmail, and you'd be able to configure the payslip layout to be sent that way. You can also password protect the payslips via email as well. That is an option. And lastly, printing payslips. So you can print them onto plain paper, or if you've got any company stationery and things like that, you can print it onto that too. So I am going to show you where to find these different payslip options. Also a few of my favourite pre-update reports to run. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. So on to step 3, which is producing the payslips and those pre-update reports. So I've still got all of my employees highlighted there, of course, minus the employee on hold. And from those payroll tasks, I'll go ahead and click pre-update reports. So in here, we've got the different sections on the left, including any reports that we've favorited. So see, they've got a gold star next to them. So any reports that I did want to favorite, I'd be able to just click that star to add them to the favorites. Just means that they're going to be easier to find. But I've got a payslip here. I've also got a couple of payment summaries and an update records check report and things too. I do want to show you a couple of these, as I would recommend running those. First thing is the payslip. So of course, to find payslips, you've got that section on the left. You've got different options depending on the type of layout that you'd want. Email and laser, definitely the most popular layouts here. I always just go for laser, and I'm just going to go for the standard layout. Now you do have different options here. You've got like with address, if you want any payslip comments on there, or if you've got like self-seal stationery, you do have more kind of security laser payslips there too. But let's go ahead and preview this. So I can either double click or click this preview icon. If you do have any employees set up for the online services, so the online payslips, you will get this message, just asking if you want to include them in the process, or of course just purely leave them for online payslips. I'm going to click yes to include them, and then this preview of the payslip will come up. Perfect, I'll just make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So I've got all of the payslips here. Just be aware, if you do print a laser payslip, it won't print with this green background, just the words and numbers, obviously. So the green on here is more of an indicator of what the payslips will look like if it's printed on stationery. So if you do want to print it exactly like this, what I would advise is exporting it first of all, so saving it, and then just printing it from there, and that way it will print with that green background. But as default, if you just print it from here, it won't have that green. So a few different options there for the laser layouts. So everything's nice and clearly laid out there. Some other reports I would recommend, the payment summaries. So we've got the payment summary part 1 and 2. I just found in the summary section. And this is in alphabetical order as well, so I'll just scroll down. So if we just preview part 1, first of all. And again, I'll make this a little bit bigger. So this is definitely one that I would recommend. It's a really great breakdown of each employee's total gross, all the way along through different deductions like tax, any student loans, national insurance, pension, sick pay, etc., all the way through to their net pay. So it shows a really great breakdown of that. Same options as the pay slips. You can print, or if you do want to save a copy for your own records, you can. So that's the payment summary part 1. And then next one I just want to show you is the payment summary part 2. So this is a kind of similar layout really to the part 1, but it's just going to be showing different things. So this one's definitely more kind of catered to the employer side of things. So of course, still same layout there with the employees kind of going from one to the other. We've got things like employer pension, national insurance and things like that, and the employees' enable earnings too. So definitely recommend those two just to kind of check the values and things before you go ahead and update the records. So 3 recommended pre-update reports there. If you use online payslips, which is included for free in your payroll subscription, that is a slightly different process to do those payslips. So you won't do it through the pre-update reports. You'll do it through this next step, which is uploading the online payslips. So I'm going to show you how to do this. It is really, really quick to do. First of all, of course, just make sure you've still got your employees highlighted. I've actually only got 4 of my employees set up for online payslips just to kind of show you what this looks like. We can see the gross and net pay there, and 2 options on the right. So I can either publish these payslips immediately for them, so they're available straight away, or what I actually like to do is schedule them to go up 2 days before the payday. So my payday is 28th of Feb. I'm going to schedule these to go up on the 26th, so 2 days before. I want them to be available to the employees. And what I'll do is I'll click Publish Payslips. This can be quicker, of course, depending on your internet connection, but we can see they've been successfully set to publish on the date specified. I can check that if I want to, but basically once the employees log into their Sage HR, they'll be able to see those payslips, providing it's the 26th of February or onwards. So that was step 3. So that was your payslips and some recommended pre-update reports. Remember, there are 3 different ways that you can produce the payslips in Sage 50 Payroll. It's just whatever you would prefer for that. And then, of course, a few recommended pre-update reports was those payment summary part 1 and part 2. And they're found in the summary section of the pre-update reports. Don't forget as well, you can just click the start to favourite your regular reports. Just makes them a little bit easier to find in future. Next step is updating the records. So this is going to confirm the current pay values and the payments that you've entered, and it's going to add them to the employee's history. Nice and quick to do. And then after you've updated the records, you can post the nominal link if that's required. So you'll post the salary journals across to your account software. And you'll also make any employees who are leaving a leaver too. Then the last key task after this will be submitting the FPS to HMRC. So we'll go back to the demo, we'll do both of those steps, and that will be our pay run complete. So step 4, updating the records. Again, just make sure everyone's highlighted. I would advise as well just double checking your process state at this point. And then we're just going to go ahead and click Update Records. You will always get the option to take a backup at this point. Make sure you do. I would absolutely recommend to do so. Make sure you name it appropriately as well. So in my case, I could just name it like February pre-update backup, monthly or something like that, just so you know exactly what it's for. And this just means if anything goes wrong or if you need the data, you've got that securely backed up. But apart from that, I'm just going to work through, click Finish. And we can see that last updated date now reflects that February pay date. If I just quickly show you as well in the employee record, if we just go to the history tab, we can now see that February pay date has been added to the employee's history. So it's no longer a current pay period, that is now kind of set in stone and confirmed as a pay period. Now I don't do nominal link, so I'm going to skip this step for now. But the next step would be the full payment submission. And remember as well, in between these 2 steps, if you do have anybody leaving, I don't have anyone leaving today, but if you did, you would need to process them as a leaver before you submit that full payment submission, because that's going to include the leaver information. So I've not got any leavers, I'll skip that. But I'm going to go ahead and click full payment submission. Now this needs to be submitted on or before the pay date for your employees. And this is going to report the pay run to HMRC, including information like payments and deductions. And as I said, details of any new starters or leavers that you've had too. If you've got an employee on hold, which I do, you'll see this window. And this is to decide whether to include the employee in the FPS. So do you want to include them? You're just going to tick yes or no. I am going to include them for this submission, and what that's going to do is send a flag to HMRC to inform them that they're on hold this period. But after this, I won't need to include them in the FPS until they're being paid again. So only for like the first period that they're on hold, you'll send this and include them, and then for the rest just untick it. So I'll click submit. So this is going to come up with the full payment submission window. A little bit more information there, but we're going to click continue. And from here, you'll see your company details. So definitely double check these. You've got your gateway registration and your company details there. And I'm going to go and click submit. And we'll now see a summary of the information to send, including the liability against each of the employees. You will see the total liability just at the top here too. Once you've checked that and you're happy with it, go ahead and click submit. That progress bar is going to work its way across as it's sending that information to HMRC. We'll wait for it to do its thing. And once it has, great, we'll see that submission's been successful. You do have the option to view and print the submission logs if you want to keep, the correlation ID. This is a unique identifier for this specific submission. You can do so. It's also got the date and time, etc. there. You can print that, or of course just save that for your own records. But I'll click close. And as well as the last updated, we've now got the last FPS date reflecting that February pay date. So that's me pretty much done. So that is the fifth and final key task that I will be demonstrating in this part of for this webinar. That is my pay run complete. So a little recap of what we did there. So we did update the records first of all. So that kind of confirms those current pay values and moves them to the employee's history. We would then, process any leavers if we had any. I didn't, so I just skipped that today. And then after this, that fifth and final step was to submit to HMRC. So that's the full payment submission or the FPS. And remember, that must be submitted on or before the employee's pay date. And then just a little reminder of what information is included in that. So this is going to be things like starter and leaver information, employee details, payment subject to tax, and tax and national insurance, as well as student loan contributions as well. But that is a basic pay run and the 5 key tasks you'll need to complete. Now, just because the pay run is done, that doesn't mean that all of your tasks are complete. So you will still have month-end tasks to do. You might need to run a few more reports. You might need to send your pension data to your provider or submit the EPS or employer payment summary. So obviously that will be an extremely long webinar if we included it all in this session. So we actually do have a separate one on getting your payroll done, focusing on the month-end tasks. That focuses on them. Duncan will be taking you through those tasks on the 19th of February, so be sure to sign up for that if you want to know more about those month-end tasks. And that'll just be at sage.co.uk/webinars. But that does bring us to the end of the webinar. We've got just enough time left to cover off some further support for you, just to make you aware of any additional resources that you've got. So starting with some upcoming webinars. So I did already mention the Get Your Payroll Done month-end tasks. Still in Feb, we also have a minimum wage check. That is tomorrow. We've also got an introduction to payrolling benefits and kind of mentioning those changes that are coming up. And we do also have a Sage HR showcase on the timesheets module. So we have been running a series of Sage HR. If you do want to know a bit more about that and kind of what it is and what it looks like, I would recommend checking those out. Our next HR advice session too. So that has special guests from Advisor Plus. They are experts in the HR field and they bring some really great real life scenarios and real life advice for you. So that is on the 6th of March at 2 p.m. Very important as well, payroll year end is coming up, of course. We do have those payroll year end sessions starting on the 25th of Feb. We are expecting those to get very busy very quickly, so definitely get yourself signed up for those. Loads and loads of dates and times available, so hopefully there'll be a couple of those which are suitable for yourself. We've also got the Sage Help Centre, so this is sage.co.uk/help. All of the articles that I'd linked on the handouts, so on the slides, sorry, are from this help centre. We do use it ourselves at Sage. Really, really handy resource if you're looking for a little bit of extra support with certain topics, or you want kind of, to look at the webinars as well. We do have our own section on that. Or if you just want to get in touch, you've got like a technical question or just want to get in touch with the experts, you absolutely can. And we've also got Sage University. So this is sageu.com. You can set up a free account on here and you can access e-learning courses, bite-sized learning as well if you're a bit short for time, and you've got the opportunity to earn certification. So that's on Sage 50 Payroll, but also loads of other Sage products. So if you're curious about anything else or just want to expand your knowledge, there's loads of different options for you to check out on there. But yeah, that has brought us to the end of our webinar on processing payroll. If you do have any last minute questions, be sure to submit those now. We will kind of stick around for a couple more minutes and try to get through those last ones. If you are leaving us now, remember you can download the handouts. They're going to include all of the slides from today's webinar. And also feel free to copy and paste any of the Q&A if you would like to keep any of those questions or answers for future reference. It does look like we're just getting that last answer out for the last question there. So thank you so much for all of those questions and for your time this afternoon. Yeah, and thanks to Duncan as well for answering those. Hopefully you've enjoyed the webinar and learned something new. We would love to see you on some more webinars in the future. So from myself and Duncan, it's goodbye for now.